So to finish up the video, and I know I've kind of already gone over the limit, which apparently my phone only allows me to do it for a little over 31 minutes, which never made a video that long before. So learning, I guess. Um, Something that, like I said, I'm kind of always looking to do stuff. Like I said, I have other games too. Here's my main room or whatever. Here I got my big 55-inch TV, and then I got a computer under here as well. This one I'm kind of proud of. This actually has a cassette deck in it. I found that online. It's kind of a rare deal. Yeah, this is where all the games are. I was trying to remember where I had them all. I made a custom, this is a custom built cabinet I made. This is another one of my things I've tinkered with. I had this for quite a long time. This is all jam-packed full of video games. You pull it out and it rotates. It's like a carousel or a Lazy Susan kind of style thing. It spins around. It's square. You gotta pull it all the way. I got DVDs and stuff in here too, which obviously I don't really watch anymore. But yeah, you can see I got Nintendo stuff, Game Boy Color, regular Game Boy, Super Nintendo, 64. Here's a 64 that we had growing up. I didn't play it that much because actually I had a PlayStation 1. I played the crap out of this thing. Yes, this is a later model one. The funny thing is, I bought this and literally about, I want to say 2 weeks later, the PS2 came out. I bought it at Toys R Us. I believe it was like $172 at the time, something like that, which was a lot of money for me because I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And I was like, I gotta buy this. It's so cool, so cool. I always wanted one. And the funny story about that about that PlayStation. When I got it, all the game consoles we had before, and this was just a sign of the times, I guess. And we were kind of small town, just didn't think about that new kind of stuff. We had an old TV. It was trying to remember what it even was. Oh, it was a GE regular. It's like the cheapest TV you could get, but it was a 32-inch, tube type TV, and that's what we played all our games on. We didn't think much of it, and we didn't have another TV because it was at the time we didn't have TV in our room or anything like that. So I bought this and I brought it home, and I was all right. Let's hook it up and pull it out, and I look at the plugins and I go, red, white, and yellow. What the heck? Look on the back of the TV. There's no plugins for that. We have coaxial. I'm like, oh great, I can't play this. This sucks. So we came up with this. I came up with this idea. We had an old RCA shoulder camcorder, with the big VHS tapes. We still had it, and it didn't play tapes anymore. It got dropped off of bleachers. I think that time it was at the fair or something. It fell off the bleachers. That was a bad deal. It was an expensive camcorder. It was an RCA, so decent color, color viewfinder, everything. It didn't have a screen. It had the little viewfinder you had to look through. So it had RCA jacks on the side of it. Well, you could plug that thing into power too, so you didn't have to worry about the old stupid batteries on the back that would last like freaking 20 minutes and they go dead. Those are worthless. Anyway, we plugged it in and I hooked up the RCA jacks to the two. It didn't have sound. The first game I got was Simpsons Wrestling, which I know some people like, that's a random game. I was like, well, we like the Simpsons, so we thought that would be a fun game. And it was a pretty fun game. And I'm playing it, looking through the viewfinder with the controller. It was the funniest and probably the most unique experience of PlayStation 1 play probably anybody's ever had. And I could recreate it I don't know if my parents still have that camcorder or not, but I could recreate it. I always thought that was pretty funny. I've told people about it, and they're just like, you're so weird. And we ended up going to Gamers and getting the coaxial adapter so I could play it like normal. And now, ironically, I have it adapted to an HDMI, so now it'll play on HDMI instead of RCA or red, whatever the jacks are, composite, I think. I don't know what the technical name is. The yellow, the white, and the red plugins that plug into your back of your TV. That was extremely common for pretty much everything. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of a little story about that guy there. Anyway, I said a lot of little things. This is just kind of a walk around. I'm just kind of thinking of things to show you guys. I know some of you are probably like, why is this even a thing? But like I said, if you're bored, this is the thing to do. This is my little jump box that I made. It originally was a peak jump box. It came in a little gray container thing. It had an air pump on the back of it. It was really loud. It took forever to air up a tire. I actually made something out of that. I have a one of those portable what do they call that? Air tanks, I guess. It's a portable air tank. I tapped it into the air tank, so you hook it up to 12 volts to your battery, and then it'll run the pump and air up the air tank. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere, and somebody like me, especially, say you need to air up a tire on a wagon or something that's in the middle of a field. Well, you don't have an air compressor around, or in my case, an old truck or something. You want to air up the tire, it's in the middle of the field. No air compressor around. So hook that up to your battery on the vehicle you drove out there or whatever, or even the vehicle that you're messing with, assuming it has a good battery. Let it run, and it'll take a while. Don't get me wrong, you ain't quick. It's probably a 20-minute job to air up a tire, but hey, it sure as hell beats jacking up, taking the tire off, taking it back into your yard or whatever to your air compressor and doing it that way. But anyway, it's kind of rinky-dink looking. Like I said, it's bold. I have it like hose clamped onto the handle, and then I made like a handle out of wire, and then like a piece of wood so it can carry it. And the rest of this is what's left of it. Like I said, it was a cheapy discount closeout thing when I used to work at Baumgar's, and I forget what I paid for it, but I've had it for quite a long time. Actually, the battery went bad in it, and it actually has a one of those like a scooter batteries in it now, which I thought it was going to be a good jump box. I could use it to start cars. It's not really made for that, unfortunately. It works great for if you need to plug in a phone charger or something to it, or in my case, I have I think it's a 100-watt power supply you can plug into it, and then you can power stuff around the house. And where I live, we kind of unfortunately have some power issues. I don't know if it's just the old lines around. It seems like every time you get a bad windstorm or a really nasty thunderstorm, uh, whatever, something like that, snowstorm, whatever, it knocks the power out for a couple hours. And I've ran into that where I needed to charge my phone or just have a light or something stupid like that. It's like, oh, your entertainment, you're bored. You're like, oh, I need music or something, and well, now that the power is out, I can't do any of that. So you use this guy to do it. And I actually have another thing I'll show you that here in a second, which is kind of the version 2.0-ish sort of thing, which it's not quite the same thing. It's a little bit of a different idea, but just a little bit, kind of thing. I said, this is the kind of stuff I screw around with. I said, I do all sorts of random shit. And I know not everybody's into that, but like I said, I always thought it was just something fun to do. And I like tinkering with stuff. That's just what I do. And I don't like taking on big projects because sometimes I get really overwhelmed. People are like, why don't you build an engine? Why don't you, do transmission stuff? Or why not, make a hot rod or something? That's just like, it's all fun. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't have money to do that stuff. Be honest, I'm pretty low income when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like I said, that's a perfect example of the money I have to do things with. Not that that was cheap. I believe the Retron 5 was actually about $180. And it actually cost more than my PS1, which granted that was brand new too. But that only plays old games. That one was considered a new console or newer, which he said 2 weeks later PS2 came out, but it was still relevant for a while. Anyway, we're kind of getting a little sidetracked, but next thing I messed around with, this is actually a thing I just acquired. Lady, I'm a mechanic. That's what I do for a living. Um, I said I'm not the best mechanic in the world. I just do what I can do. Not AAC certified, no master tech, none of that stuff. I work at a small tire shop that we do oil changes. Shoot, I just put an alternator on a Ford Escape today. That was terrible. I've done them before in the past. Don't recommend doing those. Um, anyway, something related to work. I had an old radio sitting in the garage. I think my grandpa gave it to me forever ago. I have an '88 Ford Ranger pickup that I got. Bought it as a non-running truck. Drug it home from quite a ways away. It was a 4-hour drive one way to go get the truck. And I had to haul it back on a two-wheel car dolly. And all I had at the time was a Jeep Cherokee. And not the new ones. I'm talking like this was an '01. And an inline six. It weren't capable of the job. The brakes were not super great. Anyway, hauled her all the way back in the pouring rain. Did a complete restoration on that. I'll do another video on that truck. That truck's pretty special to me. It's got some history with me. Maybe not so much the truck, just as what the truck is to me. Anyway, back to the radio thing. My grandpa gave me this radio. It was, I don't know where he got it from. It was out of a 90s, 80s, 90s Ford truck, van, car, whatever, Ford radio, cassette player. You're like, why? Who cares? It's a cassette deck. I said, I like old stuff. So anyway, lady comes in the shop one day. She has a, I want to say 96 F-150. Very nice truck. It's an Eddie Bauer edition. Odd truck. Regular cab, short box. It's an Eddie Bauer edition. Inline 6 or 4.9, which is the 300 straight 6, the legendary, Ford motor that never dies. I've owned one. They're amazing. I regret selling it. The only reason I sold it is because it was two-wheel drive. Hers, on the other hand, is four-wheel drive, and it's a 5-speed. I was like the truck I would have absolutely just loved to have. I have a 95 F-150 XLT four-wheel drive, but it's got the 5-liter in it. It's an automatic. That truck and me have not a super awesome relationship. It's pissed me off more than once. It's a good truck, but it's not a long haul truck. It's got quirks. We'll just put it that way. I paid way too much for it. I paid $4,000 for that truck. Was not worth $4,000. Very very low budget paint job, and just not a fun deal. I'll probably show it to you at some point, but anyway, a little bit of history. Anyway, we're talking about old Ranger stuff. I just happen to see this little guy hanging around in the background here. It's probably not the best photo, but that black truck there, that was my high school pickup, and both of them are actually. The one on the right, I believe, the one that's the taller frame, I guess you would say, the one that's the Street Thunder on it. That was my one of my senior photos for high school. I had a '83 Ford Ranger, regular cab long box that I got from my dad had it, and I kind of basically twisted his arm to let me drive it. He thought it was junk and didn't want me to fix it. It was very rusted out, and we had quite the experience of restoring it. I say restore. Anyway, that truck unfortunately had a sad ending. Heading to college, I had a couple Cavaliers at the time, and that was my main drivers. This truck was just kind of an extra vehicle. And I didn't drive it as much. It didn't make very good mileage. 4-speed manual with the 2.3, and it didn't. You definitely didn't go down the interstate with it. It was 65 tops. That's about as fast as that truck wants to go. Anyway, we were in, I think, fourth quarter automotive. Like I said, I went to SEC in Milford, Nebraska, in case people want to know. General automotive technology class that I was in. We were doing brakes and suspension and AC. That was a combined class for, believe it was fourth quarter. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, they said, oh yeah, you guys can bring in vehicles and then, do brakes. And I said, oh, perfect. This truck's never had brakes put on it. And I know you're probably thinking, it's an '83 Ford Ranger. How does it never had brakes put on it? I kid you not. It still said Ford on the front brake pads. I couldn't believe it. My dad said he never touched them. And he drove that thing to work almost every day. He hauled wood with it. My dad's a welder. He had oxygen and acetylene tanks in the back of it. That box is all beat to hell. Never had brakes. I could not believe it. I was just blown away by that. They were squeaking. It was making noise. I was like, all right, let's go. I'm going to drive this truck to school. Well, kind of screwing around that night, whatever. 11:30, going down the interstate, and yes, I was on the interstate with it. It was running great. I'm like, dude, this thing's going 70. This is great. No, that was decent. I was about 4 miles from the turnoff to go into Milford. I passed a little Volkswagen GTI. He was, I don't know, probably just doing the speed limit. I get around him. Bridge. Deer. Couldn't stop. Plowed into the sucker. Just totaled the truck. I was just gutted. Just absolutely gutted. Just put so much hard work into that truck. It was just one of those things, you had a soft spot for it. You go attached to a vehicle after a while, even if it's nothing special. Like I said, that Ranger, yes, it was a 4-cylinder, but it was just, to me, it was just a neat truck. I just always liked it. Anyway, bummed out about it. Whatever. Teacher said, "Oh, where's your truck?" I wrecked it. What? Well, bring it in. You can still. No, no, it's not going nowhere. The fan went through the radiator, broke off the alternator bracket, snapped off the distributor cap. He went, "Oh, okay, that's yeah, that's not good." I'm like, "Yeah." So, yeah, that truck unfortunately got parked after that. We kind of screwed around with it. My dad made like a demo derby radiator for it and fixed the alternator bracket. He TIG welded it back together and got it to work again. Uh, Put a new distributor cap on it, and it ran and drove after that, which was kind of hilarious. He straightened the frame out to the best of his ability. Like I said, my dad's a welder, so he's also a fabricator and amateur machinist. He's not trained as a machinist. He actually trained as a welder. He also went to Milford back in the day to school to learn how to weld. Anyway, so we screwed around with that for a long time, and I was always hemming and hawing about getting another Ranger pickup. I always had my eye out for him, and then this one popped up, and I was like, I'm like, should I? Like the guy wanted $400 for it. It was an '88, same age as me, which I was just like, oh, that's got to be something right there. 5-speed manual, which I always wanted a 5-speed because that extra gear was always something I would like. This one, unfortunately, was a 2-liter, but that didn't matter. The kid said the motor was bad, and it was a regular cab short box, which I couldn't tell in the pictures, which I was like, it doesn't matter. I just like the truck. Same body style as my '83. The '88 was the last year, '83 was the first year, which was kind of neat. I owned both ends of the spectrum as far as the years go for those trucks. And in case you're wondering, yeah, that's a grill off of one of those trucks. I know I kind of made it into a showpiece. That one was all hand painted red like that. That's not factory. So I don't know. I got it from a guy I worked with. His dad had a bunch of Rangers, and he said, "Yeah, you want this one?" I'm like, "It's red. My truck's not gonna be red." I'm like, I'll take it." So I gave him $100 for like I think 3 grills, and made one good one out of two. Anyway, sorry. End up giving the guy $400 for the truck. Disconnected the drive shaft, pushed it on the back of a U-Haul car dolly, and in the pouring rain, which absolutely sucked, I was drenched the entire way home. I laid in a puddle of water to disconnect the drive shaft. It was not. I had my Carhartt coat on. It was like jumping into the swimming pool with your clothes on. It was just not a fun time. Uh, Drove my Jeep Cherokee all the way back home with the thing. It was, I want to say, right around Easter, and this was, shoot, 6 years ago, 7 6 7 years ago when I got it. I can't remember exactly, but went through a long process of fixing it up. Almost gave up on it because I am not a body guy. I put floor pans in it. I started doing body work on it, and then it came time to put body filler in, and I quickly became overwhelmed and got really discouraged because Bondo was getting pretty damn thick, and I wasn't feeling that. So as it would happen, I ended up quitting the job. I used to work at a Ford dealership. I was not a Ford tech. I was just a general maintenance, oil change, that sort of person. I did used car inspections, PDI on new cars, which was neat. You gotta go test drive some new cars, which I never got to drive any of the fun ones. I gotta drive a couple neater like Mustangs and stuff. They're V6s, nothing too special, but the fun ones they wouldn't let me drive because they're, oh, you can wreck that car. I was like, okay, whatever. They let me drive all the pickups though, which are probably worth more than the Mustangs were. A Platinum Edition F350. Yeah, you guys know how much those are worth, or King Ranch. Anyway, so got that. I ended up leaving that job. Went to work for the place I work now. There was a little bit of downtime in between there. Worked Menards for about 2 months, and yeah, they really liked me there. But I'm pretty sure they liked anybody that was willing to work, and I was one of those ones that was willing to work. But they kept cutting my hours all the time, and I just got really fed up because I had to drive 30 minutes to work every day, and they'd cut my hours. They used to work. Shift was 2 to 9, and then they're like, "Oh, you have to leave at 6." I was like, "What? Oh, we don't have enough hours for you to work." Which I got fed up with that. I got offered the job that I work at now. I've been there since, It's been a bit of a roller coaster. I'm not gonna lie. I've had butted heads with the upper management people, which it's a little small shop, so I say upper management. It's the boss and his brother, who is also my boss. One guy's a body guy, the other guy's a mechanic like I am, and it's they're family friends, so I try to keep a level head as much as I can with them. But they're older guys, so they have a tendency to do things the hard way when they don't need to, and it gets on my nerves a little bit. So anyway, uh, other boss who does the body work, I somehow was able to convince him to work on my truck. He normally does not like doing old stuff like that. He's more of a, yeah, you hit a deer, put a fender on it, that sort of collision work. He doesn't do full restoration stuff, and my truck was kind of that. Anyway, he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll take a look at it, see what it needs." And I brought it there, and he shook his head and said, "What were you doing with this body filler?" And I said, "I know it's bad. It looked like a wave on the side of the truck because I was trying to fix a dent in the side of the box, and I was trying to cut out a piece. I had another Ranger pickup that my cousin rolled. It was I think a '91. They used a similar, they used the same type of box. I cut out a section of the box, and I was trying to repair this, and it was a disaster. I ended up cutting it, sectioning it twice because I didn't get the gap right, and stuff was crooked. And I was just like, I am not a body guy. It was so discouraging when that happened. And it actually sat in the backyard for probably almost a year because I didn't want to drive it anymore because I was just so upset about it. And anyway, once I finally kind of got momentum going again, I redid the interior, everything. Um, the truck's had a lot of time put into it. It's like I said, it don't look like, it's a Ranger pickup. I know a lot of people are like, that's not anything. They're becoming more collectible than they used to be. It's like the S10s of the Chevy world. Uh, People like them or people don't like them. They don't. Some people just don't like little trucks. Some people do. Anyway, I'm a fan of little trucks, especially Rangers and first gen ones. I got a soft spot for it. So anyway, long story short, he was able to go through the whole truck and redo it. And we're trying to decide on a color. And the truck was originally black. Well, it was painted black, but it was kind of screwed up how they did. Like it originally was black, and then it had gray around the bottom side of the fenders, and then it had this kind of neat looking yellow and it was either gold or yellow. I couldn't tell. It was faded. It was really neat looking pinstriping on the truck, and then also had it on the hood, and then added one of those super generic looking chrome cattle guards that every '80s pickup had, and I was just like, God, that's so tacky. And it had one of those cab visors on it with lights, which I thought was neat. But after working with it with fiberglass, and they're actually really hard to get. But that one was in pretty rough shape. The lights were falling out of it, and the lenses were cracked. Actually, I tried to buy clear lenses. I got lenses for it and stuff, and I was just like, I don't know if I want this on here. So I ended up just ditching the cab visor. Of course, there was holes in the roof from it, and this truck had a lot of rust from that. I got it on the floor, and it was unfortunately not in very good shape because of that. So that's why I ended up replacing the driver's side floor pan. The A-pillar inside part was all rotted out. It was a nightmare to fix, but and then above the patch panel even rusted out, basically right where the pedals are. That was all rusted out as well. It was a disaster, and somehow I was able to overcome it. I said, Dad, being a metal worker, he knew how to make stuff. I gave him a template. He cut it out. We punched a hole through it. It was up all the way up where the e-brake cable goes through the floor. That's how bad it rotted out. It was bad. Anyway, and then I dumped a bunch of white vinegar or vinegar all over the floor to try to eat all the rust because the floor was just nasty in there. It looked like it was sitting in a swamp. And got it clean out the best I could. And the passenger side had this random hole in the floorboard, which we thought maybe a shotgun had gone off in there because it went off the way it was faced. It went outward. The metal did. It didn't come into the cab. It went out of the cab. So like, I wonder if he had a gun up against the floor and it went off, or that, or something happened to the exhaust and it like jammed itself into the floor because it was a round hole. And I was like, what in the world? I didn't know the history on this truck. A younger guy owned it, and he blew the motor up. It originally had a 2-liter carbureted motor in it. Anyway, here's where my old truck comes into play. I still had the motor in that truck. It still ran. So I pulled that motor out of that pickup and swapped everything over into this truck, and everything was pretty much a direct swap, pretty easy to do. And it was turned out to be pretty good thing. And driving it for a while, it was kind of smoky. I had stainless steel exhaust, header, all that stuff. It was 3 inch. It kicked out the side in front of the rear tire. And I'm talking in past tense. It's still like this. I own the truck still, in case you're wondering. So anyway, around this time, I said the truck finally got done with paint. Finally decided on color, of course. And I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, what does this have to do with anything? My brother and his wife, they do pulling trucks. And he has a truck. It's I want to say 75 F250, heavily modified, of course, for pulling. These are ones that they pull sleds down a track with. You aren't driving these on the street. His is a filled block, so it's like a drag car almost at this point. It's got the upright headers coming through the hood. And anyway, his truck's called the Screamin' Bohemian, in case you guys are curious. It's a two-tone truck. It's black, and then kind of a, I want to say electric, kind of limeish green down the center of it. It's a unique color, and then of course it's a Screaming Bohemian in black, kind of bouncing script on the side of it. Neat looking truck, and this is where I got the idea for my truck was his wife has an 82 F-150, or F-250 I should say, has a 460 board, a lot of stuff done to it, let's put it that way. His truck is very similar. His is a manual, hers is an auto. That truck I kind of helped my brother build a little bit, not a lot, but he likes to play around with that kind of stuff. I don't get that heavy into cars. He's got the shop. He's got he's got a forklift. He's got ways to do that. I don't have that stuff here. I would love to do that kind of stuff if I could, but I just don't. I don't have money to do that kind of stuff, and honestly, I get burned out being at work all the time, so I can't always do that. Anyway, we ended up, or she ended up calling that truck the Bohemian Outlaws, painted exactly like my brother's truck. Well, her truck mimics the body style of my Ranger. So I got the idea. I'm like, you know what? This would be neat. And I asked him, I said, hey, would you mind if I painted my truck the same color as your pulling trucks? And he says, yeah, go for it. I don't care. I said, awesome. So here's where it comes in. Painted my truck that color. His has silver pinstriping on it. I copied that as best as I could, or whatever my boss, the body guy, did. He's like, yeah, what do you want for pinstriping? You know, I'm not just gonna leave this black and green right next to each other, because you always see that odd little line there. It's just not ever perfect. There's always like drips and bubbles and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And he's like, yeah, what color you want? And he's like, I don't know, I'm thinking like silver. I'm like, yeah, silver would actually work really good. So he put silver pinstriping. It's a double pinstripe all the way around the border on both sides of it, and it turned out very nice. And then I started kicking around. Maybe I should get some graphics on this, kind of really, make it look like his pulling truck and his wife's. Her truck doesn't say it on the side. She has it on the front where all the weights go. It says Bohemian Outlaw. And then I came up with the idea. I'm like, well, a Ranger is a small pickup. Why don't we call it the Little Bohemian? And it's not a pulling truck. I will put that out there. Mine's a show truck. That's what I use it for. It's for shows. I don't take it to very many of them, unfortunately. It's one of those trucks that it's fun to show, but not exactly something you want to cruise down the highway too much with. It'll do 65, but anything above 65, it's not too fun. The big highway out here that heads towards Lincoln, that's a 70-mile-an-hour highway, and that's flat out on that truck, and it has a hard time maintaining 70. So to me, it's just like, it's just not that fun to drive when you're just flat out. So Anyway, the truck's actually won some trophies. That one up there that's cut out like the shape of Nebraska, that's the first place trophy. Got it a couple years ago. I was very proud about that. And the funny thing is, all I did was pull that truck out of the shed, or shed, I should say, carport, and I drove it to Lincoln, went through the automatic car wash, brought it back, wiped the interior down, threw the mats in the washing machine, cleaned them up, put it in the car show, and I got first. I was like, "What?" And I've had it. I've had it at several shows, as you can see. The plaques up here. I always used to take my Challenger and my Ranger to every single one. I think the first show I took it to. I know, shoot, no, the first one I ever took it to is as far as one on the wall here. Uh, Challenger got second. Ranger got third. Next year, I think the Challenger got second. Then the Ranger got third, and then the Ranger got third. Or no, then the Challenger got third, and that's when I got first with the Ranger. And then this last year, they both got. I think they both. I know. The Ranger got third, and then I brought my motorcycle, which yeah, that's a new addition to my vehicles. I'll have to show you that at some point. Uh, as well as the Ranger, of course. That one also did surprisingly well. There wasn't a whole lot of motorcycles there, but it was pretty neat. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up now. I know it's just basically just rambling about everything.